trying to level up one or a bunch of jobs to 100, but you also want to get it done in a way to make the most of your time? Well, then you have come to the right place. I will present anything you can prepare before you start to make the most of your time and go over a way to level combat jobs as efficiently as possible, regardless of what role they are. I will also list some alternative, yet rather specific paths you can use at specific level ranges. First off, if you're looking for a way to level up your first job really fast, meaning you have yet to complete the main scenario quest, do that first. This quest line is admittedly not always the best for XP, however, it is mandatory to complete it to access all the high level content you would want to be high level for in the first place. And, for the most part, the questline gives you all the XP you will need to reach max level, and then some. With that out of the way, let's start with the various XP bonus options in the game. First, Rested XP, which gives you an additional 50% XP from defeating enemies. This will be a recurring thing. Gathering and crafting items with non-combat jobs also spends Rested XP, so take note of this if you want to be sure the Rested XP goes to combat jobs. Your accumulated Rested XP is shown as a darker yellow part of your XP bar, and if you have enough for the rest of the level, it will instead turn blue. You accumulate Rested XP by hanging out in and being locked out in sanctuaries, which are indicated by this moon icon next to the XP bar. Rested XP only boosts XP from defeating enemies, which means in a dungeon, it will boost the XP gained from killing the boss, but not the XP gained from, say, a leveling roulette bonus. So this is less crucially impactful if your leveling process exclusively or in heavy majority involves doing daily roulettes, for example. The second option is Heat of Battle and Squadron Battle Manuals. Heat of Battle is a buff provided by a free company, and Squadron Battle Manuals can be collected through your Grand Company Squadron. Heat of Battle grants 5 to 15% additional XP gained from defeating enemies, depending on which grade of Heat of Battle it is. The manual instead goes straight to 15%. If you're affected by both Heat of Battle and the Battle Manual, then you will only get the benefit of one of them. The stronger one should you have a weaker Heat of Battle. That is to say, they do not stack, even if you can have both buffs active at the same time. The third option is the Well-Fed bonus. All food buffs in the game give an additional 3% XP from defeating enemies. As such, I highly recommend having a food buff at all times while leveling. This can be done simply by going to a food vendor in a main city and buying a big stack of food. The cheapest and most common option is boiled eggs, so simply buy a bunch of that and keep the buff running. The fourth option is the Armory bonus. If you already have a job that is a higher level than the job you're currently playing, then it benefits from the Armory bonus, which grants an additional 100% more XP from defeating enemies if your current job is below level 90. 50% if it is level 90 or above. Note that this bonus only applies if you have a higher level job, so it is more effective to level one job ahead of the rest over doing some sort of frog leaping method. The fifth option are the various XP bonus granting equipment. Among these, we have the Friendship Circlet from the Recruit a Friend campaign. It grants 20% additional XP from defeating enemies while at or below level 25. The brand new ring, which is granted for simply completing a Hall of the Novice course with a role. This ring grants 30% additional XP from defeating enemies while at or below level 30. The Bozja earring, awarded for appraising 1000 forgotten fragments in Bozja, which sounds more daunting than it is, grants 10% additional XP from defeating enemies up to and including level 80. And finally, there are various pre-order bonus items that give an XP bonus up to a level range. The most recent of which is Azema's earrings, which grants 30% additional XP from defeating enemies when at or below level 90. A notable detail about all these sorts of items is that if you are synced down to an appropriate level range for any of these items, they will work and grant you the bonus still, even if your actual level is out of reach. A side point to this is that the XP bonuses apply specifically to mob kills, or boss kills in the case of duties, and a boss in Tamtara does not give very much XP to a level 90, relatively speaking, even if it is boosted by 30%. The final and sixth option is the Road to 90 bonus, which is granted when making a new character on a preferred world, or sometimes when you move a character to one. This buff stays around for 90 days or until the world stops being preferred, whichever comes last. This buff doubles all XP gains while a job is below level 90. Notably, this doubling happens after all other bonuses are applied. If you don't already have this effect active when starting your leveling grind, don't worry about it. Finally, before starting your grind, be sure to pick up a Wondrous Tails book from Chloe Aliapo in Idleshire, unlocked through the Unctuous Adventurer near the Aetheryte. Filling this book by doing 9 tasks on the list and returning it gives you exactly half a level's worth of XP for your current job. You can pick up one such book each week and you have 2 weeks to complete it. I have a separate video that goes in more detail on this book if you are interested, link in the description. Now, with all the various XP boosting options in order, let's get on to the actual leveling strategy. The plan is to do daily roulettes, while, if the queue takes a while, fill with time-efficient and valuable open-world XP options. For tanks and healers, these open-world options will likely be a lot less significant due to much shorter queues. Obviously, if you have the time and plan to do all of the roulettes in a given day, the order is completely inconsequential. However, if you only have time for a few, then it makes sense to know which ones are the most effective use of your time. For that, leveling roulette is by far the best one. After that comes frontline. However, as it is PvP, it is understandable that some players would rather skip it. Just keep in mind that the daily gives a lot of XP to the job you entered the duty as, meaning this specific daily can be used to level a job without even playing it. After that comes Trials Roulette, which at times can be significantly faster than leveling, making the XP gained from it competitive with it as well, and sometimes the better choice if you are in a bit of a hurry. After that comes Main Scenario Roulette. This one takes quite a while, but does award you reasonably for it, although it may be easier to stomach this one if you have something else going on another monitor for example, like watching this video. Yeah? Next comes Alliance Raids, which is another one that can be problematic if you're not sure how much time you have, as the clear time can vary greatly depending on whether you get Crystal Tower or something else. The XP should scale to compensate you reasonably for your time. After that comes Normal Raids, which is, for the most part, directly comparable to Trials, just with a lesser XP reward. Then comes High Level Dungeons, which is where we reach an XP amount where you might be better served skipping it, but some players do enjoy this one regardless of that. Finally, don't bother doing guild hests at all, unless you have yet to complete the challenge log for 3 guild hests. Without this challenge, the XP is simply not worth it. Now, if you make it through the entire list of roulettes and still have more time and energy to level some more in that day, instead queue for the highest level dungeon you can, but never end of expansion dungeons, meaning those you would find in the high level dungeons roulette. This means, for example, that if you are level 70, you should queue for Castrum Urbania and not something like The Burn. A bonus tip here is that if you anticipate that you would land at a level that is a multiple of 10 with no more daily roulettes to use to push past this, it might be beneficial to save some of the more concentrated XP gain dailies for that, like leveling in a MSQ roulette. With that said, the highest level leveling dungeon you can access will typically always be the best dungeon that awards you the most experience from defeating enemies. So while these queues go on, sometimes you have extra time to do something else before the duty pops, especially if you're a DPS. To make the most of this time, I have a list of other effective XP sources you can make use of while still in queue. This can also be helpful if you simply don't have time for a duty or run out of roulettes and whatnot. The first one of these is Allied Society daily quests. Each Allied Society has different requirements to unlock, but typically it is simply down to doing a specific set of quests that lead up to them. The easiest approach is to simply look up the specific one you want to unlock. I do have a slightly dated guide on this subject if you are interested, link in the description. As you are only allowed to do 12 of these quests in a day, you can typically, at most, help 2 to 4 societies per day depending on certain factors. Notably, the A Realm Reborn societies give atrociously bad XP, if any, and should generally always be skipped in favor of others. For all other expansions, the experience reward scales with your level up to the end of the given expansion, meaning the Heavensworn societies peak their XP gains at level 60, for example. I would recommend helping the 2 to 4 highest level societies you can access with the job or jobs you're leveling. Optimally, use a job closer to a given expansion's level range to make the most of the XP. As of the making of this guide, there is yet to be released a combat society for Dawntrail. However, when it releases, it should be your first stop with any job at level 90 or above. For level 80 and above, Endwalker's Arcasadara are optimal. For 70 and above, Shadowbringer's Pixies are your only option. For 60 and above, Stormblood offers both the Kojin and Ananta. And for level 50 and above, Heavensward has both the Vanu Vanu and the Vath. For a somewhat relative comparison in EXP gains, doing the 3 Arcasadara dailies as a level 90 plus job grants approximately the same XP as doing the high level dungeons roulette. The second option is to do daily hunts, not to be confused with the randomly spawning hunt marks in the world. To unlock this, you need Second Lieutenant in your Grand Company, and then an NPC will grant you access. You also need this already unlocked to access the hunt in any expansion. Furthermore, you have to unlock all of these in order. It is also worth noting that, once again, the A Realm Reborn marks give atrociously bad XP and should be skipped. All elite marks also give basically no XP. That said, to unlock the hunting boards, in Heavensward it is unlocked and accessed near the Forgotten Knight in Ishgard, in Stormblood it is near the Shiukaze Hostelry in Kugane, in Shadowbringers it is near the Temenos Rookery, however the quest is found near the inn. In Endwalker it is unlocked near the Aetheryte but is accessed at the Scholar's Harbour, and in Dawntrail it is unlocked slightly west of the Bayside Bevy Marketplace in Tulicholal, and is accessed near the market board at the same Aether Shard. On a given day, simply grab every single mark bill for a given expansion and get to work clearing each one. If you don't want to play around with discovering where each enemy is found yourself or plan kill routes, there are websites that generate these for you. I will put a link to one such website in the description. Once again, you will make the most of the XP if you use a job in the appropriate level range of each expansion. However, unlike society quests, there's nothing preventing you from using a severely underleveled job to complete these marks if you're capable of defeating them. I believe you can even bring a friend to defeat them for you, but I never bothered to try this myself. If you still have more energy to go after doing all of this, my third suggestion for filler content between queues is Fates. Simply make your way to a level appropriate zone and start doing Fates. Do note, you have to be in the zone when a Fate resolves to receive the reward, so if your queue pops, you may lose out on that. But there's not much you can do about that beyond being very slow to click accept on the queue. This can be particularly handy if you haven't completed the Shared Fates feature, or want something for bicolor gemstones, relevant for Shadowbringers and onwards. You have to clear quite a lot of fates in a given zone to complete the shared fates for that zone. To recap the leveling strategy, activate all your XP boosting options you have. Go through your duty roulettes, leveling, frontline, trials, MSQ, alliance rate, normal rates, maybe high level dungeons, and 3 guild tests if you haven't cleared the challenge log this week. Then spam the highest level dungeon you have available. To pass the time between queue pops, do your allied society quests, hunt marks, and then level appropriate fates. Note, there are also challenge logs for fates for some extra XP. Now, if you're leveling a job below level 50, some of these options will be out of reach. In that case, make use of leveling roulette, frontline, and maybe 3 guild tests. You could even do 10 for the other challenge log, and then queue for the highest level dungeon you can. While doing so, do your actual hunt log for your job in question, if it has one. Otherwise, you can also do level appropriate fates. Usually, the dungeons will level you up rather quickly. With that out of the way, I want to highlight a few alternative leveling options that are somewhat popular. The first one is to level using your squadron. If you have a good team set up for this, these can level you faster than actual groups up to level 60, if not easily past that. The optimal setup, I believe, is a Marauder tank, if you're not the tank, a Conjurer healer, if you're not the healer, and 1 or 2 Arcanists as DPS. For maximum speed, all of the squadron members should be set to offensive battle tactics, and of course, if you can, maxed out to 5 pips. If you don't have squadrons available, I guess duty support could be an alternative, but I guarantee that these are not and will not be faster than running with actual players, or squadrons. The second strategy involves deep dungeons, however, you may need a pre-made for this. Palace of the Dead is good for level 1 to 60, Heaven on High is better for level 61 to 80, Eureka Authors is probably best for 81s and 90, and may also be decent up to level 100. However, for maximum XP efficiency, you should aim to reach the checkpoint floors for these deep dungeons, meaning 51 for Palace of the Dead and 21 for the other two. That way, you can spam this set of floors for maximum XP per hour. If you don't have a pre-made, this may be outright necessary to actually get the queue to pop at all. Sometimes the queues can also just be really long in general, which can make this strategy less effective. The third strategy is specifically for level 71 and above and involves Bozja. Simply doing skirmishes and critical engagements will accumulate lots of XP for you, with it being more effective the more players are stampeding around the area. This includes both Bozja and Zadnar, although Bozja may be more effective for raw XP gains. This strategy is very effective up to level 80, but is somewhat competitive up to level 90 as well, so it should not surprise me if the XP is still kind of okay all the way to 100. It can get very monotonous though. By the way, while the Bozjan earring gives a haste bonus that helps kill things faster in Bozja, the 10% XP bonus does not work on any XP sources in Bozja, as that does not involve gaining XP from defeating enemies. The fourth and final weird strategy for level 90 and above is to specifically run the Endwalker Alliance raid Aglaia. The XP gains from such a run, especially with the same as earrings, is competitive with doing the highest level dungeon you have access to, until you hit level 97, where that dungeon happens to give more XP. Once again, the effectiveness of this strategy can be weaker if there are not many actively using it themselves, as then the queue gets really long. Euphrosyne and Aglaia can also be used for this strategy, but Aglaia is the most effective of the three. With all of that, it is crucially important to remember, when leveling, to level with a strategy that you enjoy. It needs to be fun. Otherwise, you will probably burn out and lose interest. What I mean by this is that it does not matter which one of these strategies is the most effective if that particular strategy is dreadfully boring for you. Some players enjoy leveling up to 50 using live quests, for example, and some enjoy leveling with just fates for the large majority of their journey. So focus on things you enjoy. Similarly, skip daily roulettes you don't like. If you don't enjoy PvP, skip frontline. If a MSQ roulette puts you to sleep, then don't do it. Just because it might get you to the end slightly faster, you might not reach the end that way. With that said, if you have some leveling tips and tricks of your own to share, or maybe some wacky way you find fun to use for leveling, I would love to hear about them in the comments. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, originally allied societies were called Beast Tribes and Beast Tribe Quests. Then, around Endwalker, this was considered a bit mean considering the friendship we developed with the races, so it was renamed to simply Tribes and Tribal Quests. This was apparently also considered too mean considering the races, and with Dawntrail was further renamed to Allied Societies and Allied Society Quests.